Once again to another episode of the Think Clinical podcast. My name is Hamza, and I'm always happy to have you here and to share the knowledge I have with you as far as doctorpreneurship is concerned, as far as healthcare entrepreneurship is concerned, and what you need to do, what you need to know, how you can effectively navigate this page, especially as doctors who will be leaving consulting room and exploring a bigger world out there. It's important that I share these experiences with you, and hopefully that would help all of us improve the healthcare landscape through entrepreneurship. So welcome once again, and in this episode I will be walking you through something that has been a topic for discussion in various industries, and healthcare is one of them. And the conversation of people and processes. When do you build a company, a people-centered company, where your focus is making sure everybody feels good, everybody feels fine, everybody feels happy? You have an intimate connection with people and how you treat them. Or you have to build a process-driven company where everybody who comes in knows exactly what to do when. Very little room for all the touchy-feely stuff. Just make sure if A happens, do B, C, D, E. If B happens, do E, F, G, H. Whatever your processes are, just laying them down and making sure that everything runs through. What do you need to do? When do you need to do what? These are questions that most entrepreneurs start, and building the right culture is very dependent on these things, and making sure that you have the timing right. If you don't have the timing right on some of these things, it's going to actually put you in a situation where you probably introduce something before it's time, and it might not be as effective as it's supposed to be. So the summary of all this is that there's a time in your company's life cycle that you need to introduce and be people driven and people centered. There's a time, in my opinion, that you need to be process driven. So there's a piece of both of them at different times in your company, but I'll attempt to walk you through that and help you understand when and how to really get this in place. So one of the things you need to pay attention to is that as a startup, regardless of what you're doing, and I'm going to use a hospital business in this scenario so that it becomes easy for everyone to appreciate, since that's the most commonly explored business opportunity that a lot of doctors lean towards, especially as a retirement plan. A lot of the time, what you are going to see is that when you start your hospital, you are going to have situations where it's still a very small, tightly knit team. You are probably going to be the only doctor or the only provider. You're going to have a few nurses who are going to help you. You're going to have one or two lab technicians who will help you. You have maybe one sonographer so it's going to be a very small team. Usually at this time of your company's life cycle, what you're trying to do is build a reputation for yourself, both as a person and as a business. So you are most likely positioned in a way that you want to keep your team together and keep them with you for as long as you can, so that there's continuity of care, there's an appreciation from your patients when they come in and see the same faces and they are treated by the same people who they believe know them very well and understand their medical condition and their needs. You are trying to build customer loyalty or patient loyalty, so you want patients to be able to come in and feel welcome, and the only way they can feel welcome is if you actually make your team feel welcome. You create an environment where there's psychological safety. The employees feel very safe to be at work, they're happy to be at work. This energy is inevitably transferred to your patients. So it's important that in the beginning of your business, you have to be more people-centered. It does not mean you don't have any processes, but you are more people-centered, where you have the time to listen to employees when they have grievances in person. You have the time to address administrative issues when they come up in person. You have the time to work through your finances, your numbers with your accountant or whoever it is in person. You have the opportunity to meet and talk with every patient, because at that time you don't have so many patients, you don't get overwhelmed. You have the time to build relationship with patients and build loyalty. You have the time to be able to really build your brand and have patients really appreciate what as a person you stand for and what your business stands for. And in this case, as I said, we are going to use the hostel business as an example, because that's the commonest one you will find most doctors going into. Now, once you build this relationship for a while, then something happens. There's going to be a time where you would now start growing. Just like you started, you are going to need the team to keep growing. So you have to grow your team as the company grows. As your patient load grows, you need to bring on more doctors. So at that point, you are not a person literally seeing or getting the contact with every patient. At that time, you have such a big team, your team is growing, so you're not the person really meeting this team and everybody in the team, because now you probably have to work through managers or through managers of managers, and at that time it becomes difficult for you to literally manage every process, address every grievance, make sure every patient feels welcome and feels good, make sure every patient is happy. You are unable to touch every single bed. So at that point, then it calls for you to start revising how you manage. Again, as I said, the fact that in the beginning of your business you were more people-centered does not mean you didn't have any processes in place. You still had processes. When people were going to buy items or needed approval to do certain things, they had to go through a process. It's just that it wasn't the people component of it was just louder than the process component of it. But as you grow, your team grows, your patient base grows, you have more people coming in, you're unable to sit down and address every single grievance of a patient or a client, then you need to start reducing your people-centered approach and moving more towards a process-driven approach. And what that means is that you are not absolutely going to discard your people-centered approach, but you are going to elevate it to a different level. Because once you start growing your team, you have to move up to a certain level of the company where you are probably just surrounded by your managers. If you have a manager, or whatever you would decide to call them, if you have a director of or a head of diagnostics or labs, if you have a head of administration, you have an accountant, these are the people that mostly are going to have a lot of contact with you. Granted, you still do some clinical work, you still do some consulting room work or theater work, you still have some relationship, but with a section of your employees. There are still times you'll be called to the ward, or you still have to go down and provide some clinical care. But the people you are going to be dealing with a lot are going to be your administrators, your accountants, your managers. Now, this is the group of people you need to be people-driven with, because again, just like you started, you had a small team, people around you, you could listen and address their grievances and be with them and show them empathy and show them compassion in whatever they are going through. The same way, when you get to that top, build the processes that run through all levels of the company, first of all. Now, as far as the whole company is concerned, this is going to be a process-driven company. So every employee knows that when this incident happens, this is the process I need to go through. Every manager knows that if I need this done, this is the process I need to go through. So largely, when looking outside the company, there are a lot of processes in place to address patient grievances. There are a lot of processes present to address legal issues that you might be of concern to the company. There are a lot of processes when you're procuring stuff. There are a lot of processes for employee grievances. Those processes should be laid out as soon as you start growing and you are unable to have the time and the energy and just the physical presence for everyone in the company like you did in the initial stages. Now, once you start building those processes, make sure the people component of it is the people around you. Once you're able to show leadership to the people around you, show them empathy, show them what you stand for as a person and what you built the company on, the principles you built the company on. These people are going to imbibe these values, and what will happen is that these values will inevitably trickle down into their various teams and into the organization. So anybody who walks in knows that I have all these processes that I can work through, but they also appreciate the fact that we're a team. These are our values. We show empathy to each other because you've been able to demonstrate it up there with the managers you have around you, so they have been able to transmit that same energy to the people around them. So even though you're not directly affecting these people's lives as you did, you are building same processes that are somehow people-centered and are still having all these trickle down to the people at all levels. And once these people feel all these values still deep down in the company, this is inevitably going to trickle down to patients. So eventually you have an organization that is running like a well-oiled machine. The processes are making it run like a well-oiled machine, and patients walk in there and they have that human touch to it. So none of this is easy. If you decide to build a really good company that will be sustainable over the long period of time, this is hard work. It's so hard. You need to be very clear, and you need to be very intentional from the beginning. And doesn't mean you not have bad days or bad periods or bad moments, but you need to be very clear on what you stand for as a company. And regardless of what the company is going through at any time, you need to consistently deliver on those. So these are my thoughts on the whole process people approach to managing your company, and when or how to navigate through those. And if you have any questions, yes, again, please leave a comment in the comment section. I'm happy to reach out to you and have a conversation with you on where you are in the process and what you need to do to be able to get this. And if you need to build processes, if you don't know how to do that, I'm happy to help you build some of the processes and guide you on what you need to know. So this again has been another exciting episode of the Think Clinical podcast. It's always good to be here. I appreciate the support as always. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to improve what you are listening to on this channel, and we'll be happy to adjust accordingly. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and please remember to subscribe, like, and share the content, and we will see you again in our next episode. Have a good one.